everybody, Mac here. Welcome back to the show. Welcome back to Mortal Monday. I know last week was pretty dead, but it was quite the week for me in the real world, so I didn't get much of a chance to do anything. But here we are back today with the edgiest of boys himself, Spawn. Now this is Spawn for the Mortal Kombat line. This is not Spawn from McFarlane's Spawn line, although you wouldn't be able to tell with the way that he packaged this, because this is very much a Spawn-style packaging. With the bright green in back that really makes the figure pop. It just says Mortal Kombat across the top, but Spawn is real big down here. I don't know if this is how Mortal Kombat packaging was before the Mortal Kombat 11 boxes, because I only recently started collecting the Mortal Kombat figures. If you take a look at my Scorpion review, I even mentioned that I missed out on the standard Scorpion and the standard Sub-Zero, and I have to try and get them one way or another. This is also the second incarnation of this version of Spawn for Mortal Kombat, because this is the version that comes with the mace, not the sword. And I know a lot of people wanted the sword more than the mace, but I kind of like the mace better, because right now anyway in the comic, he's used the mace a couple of times. What I really want is for him to bring out a version of this Spawn with the axe that he uses, because that axe looks so much like the axe from Soul Calibur that he used back in the day, and I would love to get my hands on that. I don't know if he's going to be making that, though. But up front, like I said, we have the green that makes the figure pop. We have the black packaging instead of yellow. Spawn real big down here. Mortal Kombat not so big. We have some nice artwork of Spawn down here, and it carries around to the side. A promotional shot of the figure. A real nice promo shot of the figure on back here. On the side, Mortal Kombat, side window, window up top to let light down. But not only do we have this version of Spawn to take a look at, but we also have Spawn in Cool Mint flavor. Now, this is a more recent version of Spawn. However, the sculpt is going to be the same. It's just a color variant, much like a lot of the skins for Mortal Kombat. You can also see this has the newer packaging. It still has that green background, but it has the gold packaging where it says Mortal Kombat 11, Spawn down here. Whoops. Promo shot on the side, promo shot on back. He has his sword. Mortal Kombat 11, the sword down here at the bottom, window up top. And this is the Lord Covenant skin for Spawn. And normally I'm not much on buying figures that just have a skin swap like this, but the Lord Covenant skin swap, this color, even in the game, is actually one of my favorite color variants of Spawn, so I wanted to get this one as well. So, we have two versions of Spawn to take a look at, so we'll take a look at one of them. They're basically going to be the same, just a color difference and a weapon difference. So let's get these two out of the pack, and we will take a look at Mortal Kombat McFarlane Toys Spawn. Okay, everybody, here he is, original flavor Spawn, out of the box. And while he's not as big and beefy as Shao Kahn, there's a lot going on with this guy. But the first thing we're going to do is we're going to put the tape measure to him. Being a McFarlane toy, he should be in about 7 inches tall. And right here we have him at roughly, looks like 7 1/4 to the top of his head. So he's just a little taller than some of the other McFarlane's figures, which suits him, which suits Spawn. Now we take a look at the articulation, and he has all of the standard articulation that a McFarlane figure has, that 22-point articulation system that they've been boasting on the packaging, but there are some limitations that we'll see as we get from head to foot. So first of all, his head does do a full 360. You can see the collar gets in the way a little bit, but this is a very soft rubber, so it won't really hinder it if you don't want it to. His head can look down. His head can look up just a little bit, but there's so much tilt back and forth. Now the arms. He has those butterfly joints in there. And one thing you have to remember when we're doing this is that this is one of the original sculpts, one of the original articulation setups from McFarlane Toys, so it may not be quite as fluid as some of the newer ones are, because admittedly he has improved, McFarlane Toys that is, has improved the articulation of their figures. So he has this butterfly joint, but it's not a whole lot of travel, plus the cape hinders it a little bit too. The arms can come up to the side, can go up a little bit past 90, and do a full 360 rotation. Full 360 rotation. He has a bicep swivel. He has double jointed arms, elbows. But as you can see, because of the gauntlets and the spikies, he can only go about a little bit past 90. On this side, with this big Horkin gauntlet he has here, he can only do 90. Even though he does have double hinges, you can even see the pins in here. But because of the bulk of the arm guard, the bracer, he can only do 90 degrees here. Or is it just that it's sticking? Okay, no, it's stuck a little bit, so he can get a little bit past 90, just like this one can. Now we get to his wrists, and he has that swivel pivot, swivel hinge, swivel, that the hands do rotate. They pivot up and down, but you can turn them so that they go in and out as well. And I really like that setup. I wish Hasbro would incorporate that setup with the wrists. He has an ab crunch. Oh, get your arms out of the way, Spawn. Come on now. He has an ab crunch that he can do some serious hula hooping. He can go forward. He can go back. He also has a bit of a ball joint at the waist, so he can really get some more crunch going there. But you can see if he goes too far back, you can see the gap. He can do some side to side. And he swivels at the waist, as well as swiveling at the ab crunch. Now the legs have a little bit of that swivel that the newer ones do, but not nearly as much, not enough to make a difference. They do go forward, they go back, can come out to the side, do the splits. They are always great with this because of these joints that they incorporate here. Like I said, no thigh swivel, which is too bad because right there would have been a great place to put the cut. Double jointed knees, that he can go all the way back. And what's impressive is, even with this one, with this big boot, he can still come almost all the way back with it. And then ankle goes back, ankle goes way forward, forward facing pin for rocker, and boink, a toe articulation. So there we go. Everything that McFarlane is used to doing. His ankles can sort of do what his wrists do. Well, all the McFarlane toys, the ankles can sort of do what the wrists do, but they seem stuck in this like back position here. So I don't know if they're supposed to do that, or if it's just designed that it can do that. Now, there's a few things about posing that we're going to talk about before we look at anything else. That this cape, while this cape is beautiful, if you take a look at it, the detail work on the cape, the look of the cape, this ratty appearance, the wash they put over it to dirty it up, the cape is as much of a character as Spawn is, both on this figure and in the comic books. So I understand why they took so much time and effort to make sure that this cape stands out. But it's so heavy that even in make a liar out of me, even in a neutral stance, I have a hard time posing him. This bit right here drapes on the ground that sometimes when you put him in a neutral stance, he's so back heavy because of the cape, he'll just fall over in the neutral stance. And posing is a bit of a bear with this guy as well, because not only is the cape very heavy, but if you look at him, the asymmetricalness of him, he is much heavier on one side, mainly because of this gauntlet and this big boot, than he is on the other side. Like, these pouches here don't do anything to offset all of this weight. So posing him without the use of his stand, which he does come with. He comes with a stand just like all the McFarlane toys do, just circular stand, says Mortal Kombat on it. Without the use of his stand, getting him into certain poses is fairly difficult. Like, I feel like this sort of harkens back to McFarlane's original days, where he was concerned more with the sculpt and the look and the detail than he was about articulation. Because if you used to collect McFarlane toys, especially back in the 90s, you know that his action figures were basically just statues with some articulation. But if we look at the detail work on this, first of all, let me raise this camera up. Look at the face on our boy here. Oh, that looks great. With those green eyes just piercing, staring into you. That is fantastic. This is not a smooth bodysuit like the comic is. This is the sort of skin textured look of his Mortal Kombat self. You can see this texturing in his legs, up in his torso, down through his thighs, even in his feet. And this the detail work on his big boot over here, as well as this huge gauntlet he has for defense right here. The chains on his belt, which are very rubbery, by the way. The spikies on his gauntlets, they'll hurt you if you're not careful with them, as will the ones on his legs. They're not as sharp as Shao Kahn, and you'll notice none of mine are broken off like Shao Kahn was. But his chain belt is very rubbery, very pliable, which is good because of where they put it. It's going to get moved around a lot. Now, the cape is glued onto him, so unless you want to do some customizing, and you can even see a peg right down in here where it's glued onto, that I'm kind of torn. On one side, I do like this cape. I do like the work and the detail they put into this cape. But on the other hand, I'm like, I want to swoosh it. I want like a cloth cape with a wire in it that I can fold around him or have flared up or give some personality to. Because while it looks great, it doesn't have much personality to it because it just kind of drags behind him. And even in the game, his cape is as alive as it is in the comic. Like, there are certain moves in Mortal Kombat that he uses the cape as a weapon, especially in one of his finishing moves. He like just splays it out and there's machine guns hidden underneath it. So part of me wants to rip this off and get a cloth goods cape, a custom third-party cape that'll be more dynamic. And the other part of me is like, this looks so good. Now, if we take a look at Lord Covenant Spawn, you can see he is exactly the same figure. And I normally don't go in for buying repaints like this unless there's something special about them, or unless they're like a convention exclusive and it just has some sort of special meaning. But the only reason I really went in on this one is because I really like the color scheme of this. And once again, they did a great job on his cape. That they dirtied it up, they gave it this wash, and it looks fantastic. Completely the same character. Nothing different about this except for the color scheme, which, like I said, I really appreciate the color scheme on this. I mean, even take a look. The only difference, I think, with the eyes is there's not nearly as much green in the eyes, I believe, but I do like that they're narrow, they're dangerous looking, they're deadly looking. I like that. But as far as that goes, you can see that the sculpt, the figure, everything except the coloring is exactly the same, as well as having the same issues with the weight of the cape. And he has all the same articulation. One thing I forgot to show you on original Spawn is his toe articulation. You can see that there's this piece that sticks out. So even if you articulate the toe and you try and get him in like a running or a crouched position, this interferes and throws him off balance a little bit, believe it or not. And that is annoying as well. Something else that contributes to issues with posing him without the use of his stand. Now, Lord Covenant Spawn comes with this sword as his accessory, and this sword was the sword that came with the first release of the Mortal Kombat Spawn, and I really liked it. Not as much as the mace, but I'm glad that we got a second chance at it, because the sword release of Spawn is only available on the aftermarket, and it is très expensive. It's ridiculous. I really like, let me see if I can get a close-up of it. I really like how it has the Spawn logo here in the middle, in the hilt of the sword. All about the branding. Is that going back to original Spawn, I forgot to mention this, he has his mace. And once again, you can see he has a little bit of a Spawn skull up top on the mace. Now, for this version of Spawn, I do like the mace better than the sword, because, like I said, and especially in the comics right now, he actually just used this mace, I think when he was fighting alongside Cygor recently. It was either in Spawn or Spawn's Universe issue 1, I can't remember which one, but he just recently used the mace. Really want to get a version of the axe out with this set. So he has the mace, and the Lord Covenant version has the sword. And here they are with Mortal Kombat 11 Scorpion and Shao Kahn. You can see that Spawn is, both of them, is taller than a standard human character, but still not as tall as Shao Kahn. And here they are next to McFarlane Toys' Geralt of Rivia from The Witcher 3. And just for kicks, the Hasbro Power Rangers Lightning Collection King Sphinx. Once again, taller than the standard human. And King Sphinx is a little bit taller. The eyes line up, but you can see the top of his head is a little bit taller than Spawn. King Sphinx is a big, big boy. I don't have many Marvel Legends to compare him to, but here you have Spawn next to the G.I. Joe Classified Cobra Trooper and Destro. You can see not only being on a different scale are they larger, but also just being large for their scale. They sort of tower over the 6-inch figures, which, depending on how you want to fit him into the collection, may or may not be a bad thing. And then finally, here he is next to the Lanyard Jungle Hunter Predator and Xenomorph Drone, just in case you wanted to use either one of those to pad out your Mortal Kombat collection, since they were guest stars in Mortal Kombat 10, I believe it was. Mortal Kombat X. So when it's all said and done, Spawn looks great. He looks fantastic. He's going to look good on the shelf. He's going to look great next to the rest of your Mortal Kombat collection. Just keep in mind, he's not going to be the most dynamically posable figure of the line, which is disappointing because they draw Spawn in the comics with some serious Spider-Man-esque style jumps and poses and things in the comic form. Even in Mortal Kombat, he can be pretty fluid in his attacks. But just because of the off-balance nature of the figure, the weight of that cape, and just some of the stiffness in the joints and that annoying toe articulation, he's not going to be able to hold great dynamic poses for very long. Even the ones that I took pictures of for this review, I took some photos and he immediately fell over, even as I was taking the last photos. I'm glad I have him. I'm glad I have both of them. They look fantastic, especially in the face sculpts with the eyes, and those capes are dynamic too. I don't know if I'm going to keep those or if I'm going to try and get a third party, but if you're collecting Mortal Kombat, you definitely need Spawn. He's one of the standout guest stars, I feel, especially when you consider that you had Spawn, you had RoboCop, Rambo, and the Terminator. Spawn, to me, was the one that fit in the best with the Mortal Kombat line out of all of the guest stars from Mortal Kombat 11. I also think that he's going to be the only guest star that we get from Mortal Kombat 11, mainly because he's McFarlane's baby. Also, if you're not collecting Mortal Kombat, but you are collecting the Spawn line, especially with all of the ones that he just brought out, this would fit in fantastic as either a stand-in Spawn until you get I don't want to say normal Spawn, but a more mainstream Spawn, maybe, a more comic-accurate Spawn. But even if you do get that, there are so many different Spawns and so many different costumes of Spawn and versions of Spawn that you could get one of these guys, put him in with your Spawn line, and just have him be another Spawn. There's another one, Malefica or Maleficent or something. There's another Spawn that just came out for Mortal Kombat 11 that is kind of cool. I don't know if I'm going to get him because he wasn't one of my favorite skins, but at the same time, I'm like, you've just brought out all of these other Spawns. You have Spawn, Gunslinger Spawn. I think Lady Spawn came out. I can't remember. I wasn't paying attention, but it's like, the next one I want is Medieval. That was always one of my favorites back in the 90s when he started the Spawn line. So, that's what we have. I'm probably not going to be diving into the Spawn collection too much just because they don't really do anything for me except for that awesome looking Redeemer. But this is what I have. I have more Mortal Kombat coming down the line in the form of Sub-Zero, Noob Saibot. I got Liu Kang, so I'll be taking a look at that. So there'll be more Mortal Mondays coming down the line. So until that happens, play well, everyone. Stay safe, stay healthy, and as always, thank you for watching.